Namaskar. Uh, Let me welcome all the delegates of the World Education Summit. We are online now with our next session, and I am here with Mr. Akash Sethi, who is the CEO of Quest Alliance. Quest Alliance is one of the leading NGOs working in the field of education in India, and uh, we have I have known Akash for almost a decade or more actually, and he has been our speaker in the past. So it's great to have him in a physical in a virtual conference after seeing him in physical events. So welcome Akash, thanks for joining us. Let me inform you that this is the 17th edition of the World Education Summit. The 16 editions in the past have been held in physical platforms. It has been earlier held in Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Dubai, Bahrain, and we've gone to Denver. And also, we have done it on some of the satellite conferences of World Education Summit in Cambridge and Thailand, so Malaysia, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, and few other places. So we are joined in by around 1,000 delegates representing the various segments of the education community, from schools to higher education to edtech community, who is watching us, and also we have teachers and academic directors who are attending our event today. So Akash, looking forward to your presentation today. Welcome, Akash.
Thank you, Ravi. And I think I remember, I think 15 years back when I was really starting off trying to understand the landscape of education and employability in India. I think the some of the conferences that you have been organizing for the last 15 years, I think I one of my first kind of memory is to have come to one of your conferences and understood, what the landscape of the emerging digital learning environment or digital learning kind of sector was in India, and that really gave me a big picture view of what are some of the challenges, gaps that really helped shape some of the work we do today. So I would like to also thank you for creating a platform like this, and for bringing together such diverse stakeholders to really listen and get inspired by each other. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that. And
Pleasure. Pleasure. Thank
yeah.
you so much.
So yeah, I think what I wanted to do today was to talk about the core. If we need to prepare young people for the future of work, we want to prepare young people for the future of learning, then we at Quest Alliance believe that self-learning is really the key enabler to really prepare young people. And what I'm here to share today is how do we understand self-learning? What are some of the myths about self-learning? What are some of the values of self-learning? What are some of the characteristics of a self-learner that we as educators can reflect about, and also see what is the role technology has in that, and see how can we collectively move the conversation to self-learning. So that's really the core of what I'm going to share. um, this is based on some of our learnings in the last 15 years. We've been able to arrive at that. So I'll get started now, and maybe give you a little bit of an introduction of Quest Alliance. Quest Alliance, like Ravi said, is a non-profit which focuses on really how do we transform learning ecosystems. A learning ecosystem can be, where the learner is at the center. There is a teacher, there is a parent, there is industry or the community, there are alumni, there are principals, but a learner has all these different stakeholders, and they are trying to make sense out of how do we succeed as learners. And uh, and and so what we believe is that what is going to really enable success in the 21st century are some of these skills of self awareness, communication, relationship building, problem solving, and not necessarily just curricular skills, but skills that actually prepare young people for life. And this is where the focus of Quest Alliance also lies, in terms of how do we go about transforming learning ecosystems, and make sure that a young person finds a lot of relevance in what they learn and how they learn. So our work actually spans across middle schools, secondary schools, and vocational training. In middle schools, we are working in Bihar and Jharkhand with about 1,000 middle schools, in saying how do we change the learning environment so that children learn, children stay in school, children engage in school. Only then learning will happen. We are doing this with the partnership in partnership with the Bihar state government and the Jharkhand state government, to demonstrate how can the system then take on more of this on their own. We work in secondary schools with a focus on STEM education. We believe, and especially for girls, we believe that the future is going to be around STEM careers. And most of the future careers are going to need STEM mindsets, not just skills in coding or computational thinking, but how do we be critical thinkers, problem solvers, so that we can apply technology, engineering, mathematics, and science in all the careers that are going to be there in the future. And finally, we work with vocational education, where we really say how can systems, the Ministry of Skills and Entrepreneurship, that has uh, digital platforms to train and upskill young people, how can we change the way content is designed and delivered at the Ministry of Skills level? How can we prepare trainers and master trainers to ensure that young people have the employability skills? And that's our focus. We work with almost 8 different state governments across the vocational training system. So in total, we actually work with almost 16 different state government departments in 8 different states now, reaching almost 500,000 learners every year through our work. So this was just to give you a context of where our work is, what our work has been, and what have been some of the learnings, is what I'm going to share based on what we have done. So I think all of us, I think, have now experienced the uncertainty that is because of COVID-19, and some of the things are still unfolding. But a few things that are clear as we have lived through these uncertain times. One is that the traditional ideas of classrooms or learning spaces, and how educators can engage young people, that traditional idea of learning in classrooms has changed. We've also had a severe kind of need for educators to upskill, reskill themselves to engage on virtual platforms. We have seen that the same, we oftentimes try to replicate what we try to do in a classroom, we try to do on Zoom calls or Google Meets, whereas actually the entire learning process needs to be imagined differently. We cannot just replicate a classroom in a Zoom call. We need to design the experience differently. We need to use digital for what it is good at. What digital is good at is to allow learners to learn at their own pace and time. What digital is good at is to give learners feedback on whether they are performing as per the standards or not. What digital is good at is to really allow learners to fail and to take time to learn what they want to learn. and oftentimes as educators we tend to replicate the same learning environment, which is typically, fearful. Learners fear being in a classroom, they fear being asked questions. So as educators we really need to rethink and upskill ourselves about what virtual platforms can really be used for to engage young people. We've also seen that there are specific challenges with respect to girls and women when it comes to accessing digital devices, digital content. There is a lot of negotiation that they need to do on the kind of access. They are not necessarily having phones or internet. They don't have the right privacy to be able to do what they want to do in the digital world. So we need to be aware that there is a deep gender divide when it comes to access to digital, and how we need to factor that into our program design. We've also learned that young people need to learn new skills. They need to be learners. They can't be people who are passing exams, but they need to learn. And therefore, if we need to really create these kind of learners, we need to have the right mindset for in institutions, in learning institutions, that will adapt to the need of the new generation of the 21st century, and allow for more upskilling, reskilling in their own institutions. So that's where I was talking about earlier, that the self-learning approach, we believe, is really the cornerstone for empowering youth in their futures, and where they are really the people who are at the center of the learning process. And I think over the next few slides, what I'm going to try to cover is what is self-learning and how can it help individuals, and what are some of the myths around self-learning. So the first few points which are here talk to how learners need to exercise their agency, which means that they need to decide, or they need to have a say in deciding what they want to learn, when they want to learn it. They need to choose the pace at which they want to learn, how fast, how slow, how many times they want to learn the same thing. We need to be able to give them, they need to have the confidence of being autonomous, that they can drive their own learning as opposed to only the teacher driving what they want to learn. And finally, they need to have be able to say what is meaningful in terms of the learning journey, what is not meaningful, what is meaningful. So we believe these are some points that need to be kept in mind when we think about what it takes for a learner to drive their own learning journey. So let's just take a step back and say what influences self-learning. What are some of the core influences? So the first one is relationships, right? If one wants a young person to be a self-learner, they need to feel comfortable and safe in building strong relationships with their peers, with their teachers, with the alumni, with various different stakeholders. So we know that without these relationships, people don't necessarily feel safe and emotionally connected. In some of the work that we do in Bihar, Jharkhand, what we've learned is that when there are stronger relationships in the classroom or with the parents or with the community, there is a direct impact of that on the learning outcomes. So we may feel that we need to focus a lot on curriculum, and we need to focus a lot on how we deliver that curriculum. But till we don't really focus on building those relationships, the other parts of delivery and curriculum come later. So that's the first factor we feel that influences how a young person can become a self-learner. The second is the idea of power. Who has the power to decide what needs to be learned, the pace at which it needs to be learned. Typically, the teacher has that power. And also systems have the power to set the right policies, to set the right systems. But at the same time, we feel that this power equation needs to be made more equitable, where learners also need to be given the opportunity to decide what and how they learn things, and the pace at which they learn things. The same thing goes with the idea of authority, that typically the people outside of the learning process control the entire system, and this authority really drives a lot of the learning process, and that's something we want to also, power and authority in a sense go together. The fourth factor is learning identity, which is basically the confidence that the learner has that I can learn new skills. It is okay for me to fail and try to learn the same thing again. So building a learning identity takes a lot of effort by the learner to say, what are some of the skills that I can pick up when it comes to learning to learn. And that becomes an important factor that influences self-learning. And finally, social conditioning, whether it's around exams, around assessments, around what is considered success. The social conditioning basically influences a lot of the self-learning that a young person can do. Some of the values that guide self-learning. First one we feel is the connection with self, deepening the connection with self, which really means that am I aware about who I am, what are my interests, what are my biases, and am I able to continuously reflect about who I am and what I feel is important. The second is community and context specific learning. So which means that if I am in Bihar versus if I am a welder in Gujarat, I may need to be learning. If I'm a welder in Bihar versus if I'm a welder in Gujarat, Gujarat has a lot of the new technology, new industries that need a welder to learn coding, whereas a welder in Bihar is still working in the community, trying to create local solutions where they probably need to learn to still weld with their hands. Whereas a welder in Gujarat may need to learn to get jobs, they'll need to learn advanced digital skills. So it really needs to inform the context, and the needs in the community really need to inform the kind of learning that needs to happen. The third factor is around connecting the head, heart, and hands. Oftentimes we see that there is a lot of disconnect in how young people don't want to take jobs, because in the new age industries like service sector, a lot of the work used to be about trying to stand and serve customers on the shop floor, and their interests were not aligned to customer service, but were more about, say, music, or being able to be interested in music, arts, sports, other things. So how do you really get someone who is a young person to really choose careers and career options that really are aligned with what their heart wants, what their head wants, and what they are good at finally. The other factor in terms of values that guide self-learning has been intergenerational wisdom. So which means that when my grandmother used to tell me stories, I was enamored by the stories she told about food, or about the various partition when that was taking place. And this wisdom was passed on to me by my grandmother through the conversations that happened. Now today there is, less and less conversation that's happening between people who are across generations. Oftentimes conversations are happening in silos, and as a result we are not really passing on the wisdom that has been gained over generations to the next generation. And we need to create more public spaces, more infrastructure that allows for this intergenerational wisdom to take place. Um, and finally, excellence is something that also guides self learning. I want to keep getting better at something, not necessarily because my peers are getting better marks, but because I have goals that I have set for myself, and those goals require me to keep getting better. So excellence as a value is an important one when we think about self learning. Some mythbusters around self learning, which I wanted to touch upon. First myth is that self learning is a lonely activity, which means that I need to learn on my own. We believe self learning is not lonely. It can be a collaborative process. It needs to involve peers. It needs to involve even facilitators to enable this self learning. But the learner needs to have the choice in that process. um, the other was that self learning is possible only when a learner has access to high technology and internet. We believe that that's not essential. It is that technology can act as an enabler to connect learner to resources, and can also come can manifest through television, radio, basic mobile phones. But it is not like, learners can't self learn through books, through games, through various activities that they do in the community. The third myth is around, that self learning means we don't need a teacher. And we believe that in the learning journey we all need guidance, we need support, we need direction. And the learner needs to, really get to uh, sorry the learner needs to get to choose their mentor. They need to be able to find who they want to learn from, who they want to get guidance from. So that's an essential sort of dimension around self learning, which we sometimes tend to we need to think that there's no teacher needed when it comes to self learning. um, 1 second. All right. So the other is really self learning requires the learner to have all the answers around what, why, when, who, how before they embark on the learning. Whereas we believe that arriving at the key question of what they want to learn, and that is key. They don't need to have all the answers. They need to have a question that they are trying to find answers to, which is really the key to enabling self learning, is curiosity. And that's critical to the learning process. And like I've touched upon earlier, that self learning is oftentimes looked at as individualistic and will work only for motivated students, whereas we feel that self learning can be driven, the mindset of self learning can be driven from collective kind of reflection that happen in groups. And through constant reflection there can be a muscle that can be built for self learning. So initially it may not start as self learning, but people can move towards becoming more of a self learner. So this, we believe, can be achieved when there are certain key levers of change that are put in place in any learning ecosystem. And these levers of change are, first is partnerships and collaboration. That we need to work in the mindset that a parent can be a key collaborator in this journey, the teacher, the community, the industry. All of these stakeholders need to be need to be contributing to the change that we want to see. The second is building capacity of teachers, of principals. It's the adults who sometimes, have stronger mindset. So we need to see how we can reskill, upskill the adults in the system to be able to enable this for young people. We need to make sure that we use appropriate education technology, which means that we don't want to lead with saying that computers is the only option, but we can really choose from a range of TV, radio, mobiles, computers, what is appropriate for learning, for effective learning to take place depending on what the goals of education are. And finally, we need to do more research, we need to do more advocacy in order for change to take place, in order for transformation to take place. And we need to, at the heart of all of this is that we as individuals, we as organizations need to be growth and change ready. We cannot wait for things to come, but we need to actively anticipate that and make the changes as we perceive that there is a need for change. So this was, I think, just wanted to end with 2-3 things that we feel you can benefit from. The first is the Quest app, which we have, which is free and open for learning 21st century skills. There are more than 300 hours of digital content here, which you can access, your learners can access. And right now it is being made accessible to about 1.5 million learners in partnership with the Ministry of Skills and Entrepreneurship. You can see analytics and various kinds of performance data for various learners in the system. So I'd invite you to download and use this to become self-learners. We have a teacher training program called Master Coach, which allows teachers to learn effective 21st century skills, to engage learners in the learning process. So you are invited to join these cohorts, and we have an online community called Trainer Tribe, which has more than 2,500 trainers that we have online master classes to effectively engage and support trainers in this entire journey. And finally, we do have a focus on knowledge creation. So we run a platform called Quest to Learn, which is really driving innovation, collaboration for models to transform learning ecosystems. So I invite you to engage in those discussions where we've done a bunch of reports and a bunch of knowledge sessions that will help you learn more about how to change, what are some of the new trends in the future of work, and that's going to help in shaping the dialogue. So these are some of our partners who've supported our work over the last 10-12 years. Not an exhaustive list, but this is one of the sort of core sort of supporters behind our work. So thought I'll sort of end by thanking them for all the work and support that they have given us. And yeah, that is about it. These are my details. Happy to answer questions.
Sure, Akash. I think your presentation has been exhaustive, and I wish that I would have asked you a lot of questions, but the problem is that the speakers of the next session have already joined in. They're waiting in the backdrop. So let me compliment Akash for leading this Quest Alliance for a long time, and you have really built it up as one of the most respected institutions working in the field of education. And your list of donors is very, very impressive, and it's a great testimony to the fact that they have been supporting this initiative year after year, which means that your organization has been making a big impact, and it's heartening to see that you are working across several states and impacting so many lives. So wishing to thank you, and we would like to present you a speaker certificate from World Education Summit, yeah, virtually, to
Thank you.
saying gratitude to you for joining us. Right?
Thanks, Ravi.
Thank you,
Thank
Prakash.
you.
Thank you, and namaste to you.